assuming we're live, so I'll call the meeting to order. Of course, it's the approval of the agenda, order of business. And there's been a variety of things added. I just wanted to mention people before we get started that there is a public hearing tonight at 6:30. Yes, I just want to be sure everybody knows.
Thanks for letting us know. It's appreciated.
Okay,
It is in my calendar now.
that one is in your calendar, yeah. And anyway, so I'm gonna add the grants workshop because we have to reschedule that. So at some point, we'll deal with that. And that's it for me. Anybody else have it? And the one other thing is
Yeah.
Adela has to leave here by 11 o'clock for
I have a
her.
medical appointment at 11:30.
So I'm gonna try to get finished by then.
You're good at that.
Yeah, I do my best.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the grant workshop.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motions carried. Public input, my understanding is we do have public input. Oh, yeah,
Hi, good morning. My name is Heather McIntosh. I'm a resident of Stanford Lake Road.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me speak this morning, last minute. I wrote an email because I didn't realize there was a meeting today, so I just wanted to put it in there. So I'm just going to read it quickly. It's a lot shorter than it looks. There is a growing group of community members with concerns about the proposed 214 unit residential development that will result in the destruction of a beautiful acreage of forest on Stanford Lake Road. This email is based on several conversations with the municipal planners, local Department of the Environment, a hydrogeologist, an architect, environmentalist, and many longtime residents of the community. Some of them are here this morning. First, 5 points. First, the development is huge, with higher density than anything outside HRM. With the apparent exception of former military base Mill Cove, the scale and density of the development is in direct conflict with the municipality's own municipal planning strategy and its shared goals and accompanying objectives to encourage the protection of water quality, ensure that identified potential public drinking water supplies are protected. These are all quotes. Reduce the impact of development on the natural environment and celebrate its character and heritage by recognizing and enhancing the unique character of various parts of the municipality, encouraging suitable rural and village settlement patterns, encouraging design that is traditional in scale and form. Community character areas express how different parts of the municipality exist today and how they will grow and change. Rural and settlement areas will continue to have low population densities. This proposed development is in the settlement area. The design, which now includes 4 apartment buildings of 3 stories each, is not in character of this part of the municipality. There is nowhere else that has 3-story apartment buildings with underground and surface paved parking. Where is the traditional scale and form part of this proposal? Mill Cove was a military base already. This is not that. Yes, Chester wants more housing, especially affordable housing, but this is not a match. Second, do the people here in this room know that there is no environmental assessment required by the municipality on a project like this? The developer sat here and stated that an environmental assessment was done. If they had someone look the land over, it was not a true environmental assessment in the way that we think of it as being. In the way that our community might think of it. They have never handed that assessment over to the team of planners here who are working to develop this agreement on your behalf. The Department of Environment will be, this is based on my conversation with Megan Rafferty, will be asked for comment later in the process. If wetlands are destroyed, this is their proposal, their rule. If wetlands are destroyed, any alteration needs to be compensated. There is no question that this development will have a devastating impact on the natural environment. There are many, many other parts of the municipality that have already been caved and developed. This is pristine woods with walking trails, streams, and wetlands. Old woods, lichen, mayflowers, berries, and hundreds of species of plants and animals that will most definitely be impacted. You, the municipal council, are the only ones with the ability to protect the natural environment from the impact of development. Third, the developers have no experience whatsoever with a development this size. and scope. They have no track record to look at. They have never done residential development. Does the municipality want to enter into a development agreement with a group of people who will be learning as they go? What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if they're not around in a few years and things at 214 unit development go downhill? Or, speaking of downhill, the proposal is counting on using septic fields for 214 residential units. Uphill from our community. What is in residential wastewater? What happens when you create an acid or low oxygen environment? It changes the water chemistry, and that makes it extremely unpredictable. It could pull out more arsenic from the rock. E. coli, prescription drugs, and nitrates will run right through that metamorphic rock and shale. The recently approved addition of Stanford Lake to the monitoring program, the lake monitoring program, will not likely catch these pollutants due to dilution in the water in and out of Stanford Lake. But the residential wells for the families along Stanford Lake Road, right between the development and the lake, will certainly be impacted. PFAs are also known as forever chemicals. They're in everything from Scotchgard to plastic to cling wrap to all kinds of tech fabrics. They're known as forever chemicals, very, very difficult for water treatment people to deal with. Building an entire community like this on rock, uphill, without a proper wastewater treatment system would be a disaster. We're not asking for more studies on this. It's well known and ill-advised to rely on septic in a shallow bedrock area. Multiple monitoring wells would have to go in down gradient from the septic system. Fifth and final, pulling well water for these hundreds of new residents will have a significant impact on the aquifer of Chester surroundings in the village. I urge you to act in the best interest of this community and its future, and create a robust development agreement that fully lays out the obligations of Chester and the obligations of this developer to protect the character of Chester and its settlement area, protect the environment in the immediate area and the surroundings, ensure that financial and legal agreements are in place that provide for contingency funding should this project end up deteriorating or falling into disrepair over the years, protect the residents who live downhill from this massive new community, protect our water, our drinking water, and our coastal waters. If you cannot or will not do that, I urge you to say no to this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are you going to declare conflict before?
Are we discussing something?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, if we did. To me, I don't know a lot of the detail because it hasn't come to council yet, other than the general notion that it's taken place.
Dr. Laird, what is?
And it's part of a development agreement, which is a negotiation between ourselves, them, and the community. And so I don't know until that process starts whether there's much we can add or say at this moment in time, other than that we appreciate you bringing forth the concerns and yeah, I understand why you have.
I'll just comment because, you know, that is my district. I think we need to look at these things. If we're going to do it, we need to do the project right.
Yeah.
And take all consideration to protect the environment as much as we can. Because this is a huge development if we agree to do it.
The process we have to go through, we
Yeah.
go through the process.
Yeah.
Public hearing,
Yeah,
all kinds of.
well, that's it. I don't.
We're
like
just
to
at the very
prejudge
beginning,
that.
so I don't think anyone's about to judge it at this point. I think we are in the listening phase. And there will be public hearings and everything will come out. So, yeah, we know people have concerns. Everybody has concerns. They also have a landowner that has certain rights, so they have to balance all those. So
Anyway, yeah, there is a process, so it's hard to get too deeply involved until it
Yeah.
begins.
Yeah.
Yes, Tina.
Thank you. I was just wondering, and I apologize if we have received the email correspondence, but I think it would be useful to, I made some notes, but to receive your,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that'd be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I know staff have a copy.
Okay, perfect, okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting, errors or omissions?
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Public presentations, I'm not aware of any. Okay, 6.1 broadband verbal update. Email the other day.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So, yeah, just because there's been a number of announcements, and every time there are announcements, there are questions from the community as to where things are at. So I thought that bring everybody up to speed. So I'm going to run through the project. Some of this you know already, but just so we're all on the same page. So where we're at today, completed projects in our municipality are the phase 1 project in New Ross, the phase 2 project in Blandford, that's sort of most of the Escatog there. There's a phase 2 project that serves Wildor Park area. That is technically a service area that's based out of Modal, but that section branched into our municipality. And that is complete too. That's approximately 70 civic addresses in that area. And there's a phase 3 project for part of what Develop Nova Scotia describes as scope expansion Chester, and that's sort of from Deep Cove to East River Point. And that project has also been complete for 37 civic addresses. All of these are Bell projects. All of these are provide access to fiber. So those are the ones that are complete. So the projects that are underway or recently announced. So the project that we're getting questions on at the moment are the phase 2 project called Chester Surround. So that's the one with 4 service areas: Stephenville, Canaan, Aldersville, and New Russell. So the Aldersville, Stephenville, and New Russell service areas are complete, and the Canaan area is underway. The total civic addresses with that project are 564, and as of June 15th, there were 191 civic addresses left to complete, and that's part of the Canaan area project. That project, if you recall, the phase 2 projects, both the Chester Surround and the Blandford project, the municipality made financial contribution of 128,000. So in June, we made an 85% payment of that because that's how much of the project was completed. So the remainder of that payment will be issued once the confirmation of the Canaan project has been completed. So we have had several inquiries from residents in the Canaan service area. I am waiting on a further update from Bell as to what that timeline might look like, but the announced timeline as of June was to be completed July, September in that frame. So it's on track. It's just not done yet. There is a resident who also has a question about how the service has been bundled in terms of from Bell, and that's not a question that I privy. That's a question that Bell also can only answer. So other projects that have been announced are the additional phase 3 project. That's the Chester Grant component of the scope expansion Chester. So that's Bezanson Lake, Chester Grant, Larder Lake, Millet Lake, and area. That's 145 civic addresses. And that is, again, the July, September 2022 timeframe. The scope expansion Hubbards area, that includes Fox Point Lake, Mill Lake, and area, for a total of 293 civic addresses with access to fiber. Again, those are all Bell projects. Then more recently, there was, I believe council, this next one was announced when council met with Develop Nova Scotia, but this was a new expansion project for various communities. And this was basically some mop up with Bell of sort of service expansion throughout the province. The areas that were going to be expanded upon in our community are Aldersville, Chester Grant, East Chester, and Martins Point. And I realize that some of these communities are mentioned multiple times in these projects, and that's because of how they're advanced based on existing infrastructure as they're developed and that.
And I think in that case with Aldersville,
Yeah.
that's actually going from Highway 12 back to a particular lake.
Right.
Hunts Lake, if I remember.
That's right, that's
So
correct.
that's still
Yeah.
Aldersville, but
Yeah.
yet it's branching off of that main throughway
That's exactly
phase
correct.
2, I think, or something, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that project was announced in April. That's for a total of 50 properties. And the estimated completion date is December 2023.
Jonathan, can I ask you where
Of course,
Martin's Point? would
yeah.
be?
Sorry,
Where the civics are in Martin's Point? Do you have that in front?
I do. I just have to find it.
That's okay.
I can let you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because I can't, for example, I corresponded with Councillor Vino about these East River addresses,
Yeah,
so there was a.
That'll be
series of
great.
that.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
okay, I'll get those to you.
Yeah.
Make a note of that quickly.
Yep.
And then even more recently, as of the end of June, there were two, so now Development Nova Scotia has Eastlink on board as an approved service provider. And Eastlink has announced a series of scope expansion projects, two in our area. One is for Bogles Point, and that's, I'm not sure exactly how many properties that is. The map provided by Development Nova Scotia is a little unclear, but it looks 30 to 40 properties in that area. And the estimated project completion date is December 2023. And then the other one is for the lodge. And this is just for four civic addresses. And this addresses an ongoing concern we've had from residents in that area that addresses an infrastructure problem whereby Bell only came so far, Eastlink came so far, and there was some kind of key infrastructure issue that Eastlink was not keen on addressing. So that is now going ahead. And so those four will now have access to that network. And then finally, as you're aware of too, on July 29th, Development Nova Scotia announced the Satellite Internet Service Rebate Program. I'm waiting for confirmation of some details from Development Nova Scotia, but what I have access to is that the system is going to provide service to approximately 3,700 homes throughout Nova Scotia, which currently have no internet service solutions been found. So this is the idea is that the program will cover one-time cost up to a maximum of $1,000 for hardware installation and taxes and so on. The program just opened on August 2nd, and residents can go online and check and key in their address to see if they're eligible for the program.
Then go online even though they have no.
Exactly. Well, that's something that's something they can either contact us, we can help them with, or the local library, or there's options like that.
Andre had his hand up first.
A couple more bits of information.
Okay, you want to do that?
Yeah, I'll just do that, just like, because it might answer your question. The couple of things I followed up about is, one is it's a rebate program. So that means that the resident would have to put up that $1,000 up front and then apply for the rebate, which would then take approximately, according to Development Nova Scotia, 6 weeks to process. So my concern there that I flagged for Development Nova Scotia is whether or not this would provide a financial barrier for some residents. So that's something that we need to have a closer look at. The other issue is if a resident is not covered by any existing service areas, and if a resident keys in their address on the Development Nova Scotia website to check eligibility, if they're in fact get a message that, no, sorry, that civic address is actually not eligible for the satellite program, then what's the recourse for that resident? So that's something I'm just trying to clarify with Development Nova Scotia too, because I wouldn't be surprised if some addresses fall through the gaps, and we just got to double check that that's addressed. So those are the questions I've submitted so far to Development Nova Scotia. I don't know if council has any other comments about that.
Yes, Andre, I have comments.
So this announcement, to my way of thinking, signals the end of the program in terms of trying to move fiber connections out to areas. I think that they've identified where they can go, and this is sort of like the way of reaching those last few that they simply can't get fiber. And I think we've talked many times about some residents in my district. I'm sure others have them as well, that just simply don't have a connection, and we keep asking about Nova Scotia for what the plan is, and this is the only thing at this point that they've offered. So I'm not sure that they're gonna be able to key in their address, and they'll be recognized as one of the needy few that get this rebate or not. My first question is, do we have any idea what a satellite connection, what the cost of the hardware is?
No, I'd have to look that up. So the short answer is no, I don't think that's it.
So it could be $1,000, it could be 3,000, we don't know. And they may not actually be eligible. So I know that our council has put aside some money, budgeted some money to help those that are in the gap area. I think that I'd like to see, I hope this council is interested in seeing some sort of policy around now using that money that we put aside to help these last people.
Yeah, no, that's why.
So, to my mind, I don't know if it's a discussion for now, I don't know why it wouldn't be, but that staff should be going away and coming forward to council with some sort of program that allows those people, whether they're on the list or not, to get them the hardware they need to now connect to satellite, because otherwise this is the end of the road for them.
So just to get my head around that, and not disagreeing or agreeing, so that would actually be consideration of a grant or an allotment to an individual versus a service provider? Is that what?
That sounds like it's the way it works.
And again, I'm
But I
not,
think there's two scenarios. One, if they can't afford the $1,000 up front, but they're gonna get it back, then we can lend it to them,
cool, yeah.
But I'm with you. I have no clue what it costs to do.
Yeah, and I was thinking more like if it were $3,000 installation, and maybe we cover the delta. So that it's kind of like, they get some from the province first, if they are eligible, and then the balance
We could
provide.
Again, to an individual, though, not a service provider.
That's correct.
Okay, no,
Well, that's the way it sounds to me.
yeah, just to know.
That would be my proposal, and then if they don't qualify, then they would qualify for us to maybe go for the whole thing.
We need to know the numbers.
We need to know, yeah. But I mean, I agree that we should develop some sort of a process by which that's possible. Once we know,
Do we know how much we have in our budget for that?
Oh, I don't remember
I
off
think
the
it's
top, but
125.
yeah, it's a reasonable amount.
Enough, we should be able to do everybody.
Yeah.
Can we improve the cell service at the same time?
Well,
I mean, we'll get questions after people are hooked up for fiber, and those that aren't connected will obviously reach out.
Yeah.
If they
I
want
think we need to
internet.
be ready. I don't think we should wait for them to ask. I think we should have that ready to go.
I think we're more or less prepared to do it. It's just what do we need to do in order to get ourselves to that point?
We can bring back a report on.
So it would be sort of like our well program,
Or something.
something to that effect. They pay us back.
Well, whether it's a loan, whether it's a gift,
Or
whatever.
something.
Decide that.
Yeah.
Floyd, you had something?
Well, actually, my concerns,
Or the same?
well, the cost was one thing, because I had no idea what it cost.
Anecdotally, we looked it up for our cottage and I think we were quoted $800, but.
So $1,000 may be enough.
Well, then we make.
My understanding is that what the report or the press release said, it would cover the cost of the hardware, the $1,000, but we can check.
Yeah, and I'm assuming too that they did their homework to figure out how much that is. And given especially right now that only Starlink is identified as a partner who would meet those CRTC minimum service standards for upload and download speeds. So that, I mean, and Development Nova Scotia has opened the door for other satellite providers to come into the program should they meet those speeds, but right now it's only Starlink.
So we need to know.
That's good.
Okay, anything else? Not because I had to try to keep on schedule here for 11 o'clock.
All right, so and just a reminder, because I'm in the process of updating the Voices and Choices page with all this additional information, so you can always go to that site and then, of course, call or email me with any questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, 6.2, corporate strategic management, governance and electoral boundary review. Okay, John.
Yeah. And here we go. We want to do this. Yeah. Sorry, just one moment. Yeah.
The second, we did the topic, whatever.
Good. All right. Okay. Right, I'm going to, I remember how to do this, share screen,
Press that button.
right? Okay. Okay, so municipal governance and electoral boundary review. So this is our third meeting on this, and for this meeting, what we're looking for is for committee of the whole to review and endorse the options for polling district boundary revisions, as we're going to outline. There are a total of 5, and we'll give a rationale as to why we have that many and go from there. So whatever council settles on, then we'll put those forward for public consultation. We're also looking to for review and endorsement of the outline approach for our community engagement plan to complete the review. Yeah.
No Russian.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Dave? All right, so the current situation. This is most of this you know, but I'll just run through it quickly. So the Municipal Government Act requires that we undertake municipal governance and boundary review every 8 years. The review must result in an application and formal study submitted to the Nova Scotia Utilities and Review Board to confirm or change the existing governance structure and electoral boundaries. And this review this year must be completed by December 31st, 2022. The review is a study of council's governance structure by the warden or mayoral system, the number of councillors, and the number and the boundaries of polling districts. Part of this is that the review board states the importance of community consultation to inform the review's purpose of assessing electors' voting power and public's opinion on what constitutes effective representation. So we have a duty to sort of perform that consultation. The timeline for completing the review for submission is outlined in the report that you have before you, sort of briefly, so you can see how those pieces would come together to achieve that December 31st deadline. Again, as you know, the review board recommends a 2-step process. Step 1 is determining the style, governance, the structure, and number of councils to provide effective and efficient representation. The council had some discussion around that. Step 2 is where we're at now in terms of reviewing the distribution of polling districts and their boundaries. And part of that process and part of what the review board will consider in its assessment of our application and study is the consideration of number of electors, relative parity of voting power, population density, community of interest, and geographic size. So the review board also notes that although public consultation shall be in tandem with the 2-step process above, the board also allows considerable flexibility in approach. So that's where we're at. What's been done in February, council discussed governance structure. So a motion to that effect that outline council's continued commitment to the current governance structure as is, i.e. the warden system. On May 26th, we had a first discussion of the number of electors per polling districts, and those were based on numbers from February, I believe. And at that point, council
committed to the review process and review of the boundary changes to remain within parity, the plus minus 10% parity of voting power as outlined for the review board. So the context then about those governance decisions that council has made. So council has established, as we've mentioned, by motion, its conviction that the current governance structure continues to provide effective and efficient governance. I just want to bring your attention to the table, just a brief comparison of on this screen. There we go. So comparable rural municipalities. So these are based on population, because it'd be a little tricky to go and get the number of electors for all of these corresponding municipalities. But as you can see, these are sort of comparable rural municipalities. We certainly are in line in terms of the number of councillors per population. When we look at Barrington and Digby and Queens and Yarmouth, Argyll and Lunenburg seem to be outliers on either end of that range, but we seem to fit comfortably when it comes to the number of councillors per population. And this certainly would be what would inform council's recommendation to sort of continue with the number of councillors that we have.
Yes.
I always bothers me when we see reports and they're incomplete tables. So we have, for example, 20 rural municipalities, but we get a section of, say, 7 or 8 or whatever to look at. Because I always wonder, what do the other ones look like as well? Like what are the what's Kings or what's West Hands?
Yeah.
So that's a comment.
No, and that's a fair.
For future, it makes elected officials very distrustful. When we only get a slice, and it's like, why would we pick Argyle and not say Kings?
The goal there is not to be comprehensive, but simply to be representative. So you got some comparable ones, and then you got 2 extremes. It was that ad hoc, just to give a snapshot. But I agree, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Ideally, we should list all.
Or not?
Yeah. Anyway, the consultation then around governance. The review board states the solicitation is a key process. What we've included in the draft community consultation plan is questions that bring up the governance structure and the size of council for public's input. So even though council has certainly expressed its conviction that the current system and size works just fine, if there is any kind of abiding, any kind of strong comment from the public on those other options, then that's something council can certainly bring forward in its debate before making final recommendations for the report to the review board. Certainly council isn't beholden to sort of follow that, but it's certainly something they can take into consideration.
Yes, question on the issue of consultation.
Yeah.
We're just talking about numbers now. We're not talking, we've always committed to the warden system. After public consultation, we're not going to revisit that.
We have a duty to sort of solicit the public's opinion on both governance structure and size. So we can, in the draft sort of residents question, we include a question about the mayoral versus warden system and a question on size of council too. So then the community can express their opinion on those options.
We've never done this before, ever.
Right.
So this is a new requirement?
It's what's outlined. I don't know what's been required in the past, but I know that in the municipal boundaries user guide that this is outlined as part of
What
the
did we do in 2012? There was something.
Well, we asked on the warden, the mayor versus warden thing, but it wasn't a requirement. We just chose.
But there was something that we did this review in 2012.
We moved the lines, we moved some lines, but we didn't go to public.
We didn't go to
consultation.
public.
We should discuss on council, make a decision.
Yeah, and I can see why having public consultation is important, I don't think this is happening, but I mean, it's a defense against gerrymandering. So I can see why having the community input component would be important for UARB.
in 2012, there were some public consultations. When we had the initial presentation, they talked about meetings that they had.
No,
We did in
No.
2000 and, was it 18 was the last one? No, 6, no, it was 2012. There were some consultations. We did not move the boundaries in 2012. We went out for consultation. We asked the question around mayor versus ward.
There was a
Came back
poll.
and had, there was a poll, that we
Yeah.
came back and had
That's
a
all we
discussion on that.
I don't remember going out, but I could be.
No.
Well,
You don't think so.
we didn't go out to public meetings. We had a poll, we had a survey, we had,
Yeah.
but that's, there was some
That's all
public
we did.
And you
engagement
had less than 50 comments. is that right?
around,
Oh.
there was not many, yeah,
Correct.
and so council decided at that time. But Jonathan is correct, in the guide that we are using, it does say that they are looking for that engagement on that piece of it. So having had that discussion, one of the options we're presenting is you could go out and do that. Now, you don't have to go out and do that. If we don't put that question in there, the risk that you run then would be the UARB coming back and asking us to go out and do that consultation.
No, I don't mind asking, it's just as whatever.
Yeah,
I don't see where we're gonna get a lot of input.
Yeah, no, and the intent is that when we draft the report, the study that we submit to the review board, we can demonstrate that we've engaged with the community.
That you've done
And
whatever.
whatever response we get, that's what we can comment on and how that supports council's recommendation going forward.
Okay, so we have to do public consultation. The big thing here, not trying to speed you up too much, but the big thing is whether we're gonna just deal with the one that's absolutely a problem at the moment, or whether we're gonna deal with more of them.
That's right, yeah.
But
Okay, let's try and get to the
Get that.
chase a little bit, yeah, so. Okay, so no, and this is where we're dealing with number of electives. So we know the population is relatively unchanged. But the number of elections from the last review is grown by 1,350, so from 2012 to 2022. So this, you've seen a version of this table. This is the table that outlines the number of electives using June 3rd numbers. And it just confirms what you've seen before. I'll just highlight that the District 2 is, and again, sorry, to provide that context, the review board stipulates that vote
10%.
plus or minus 10% of the voting average. So the polling district average, that average is 1310. The number of voters in District 2 were 1,483. That's 13.2% above that average. So that, as you said, Warden, needs to be addressed for sure.
One way or the other.
And then that, of course, has a sort of knock-on effect for districts 1 and 3. So those are those initial scenarios that we certainly have to keep in mind.
Just help me here, the number.
Sure.
The one that's increased is
District 2.
District 2. Which district? I assume it was yours. Yeah, I always have trouble with some of those numbers. But that's where obviously I think we predicted the population growth would be.
Okay, so, right, so I'll just cut to the chase then in terms of conscious of time. So we've outlined these options. And we're going to, so option 1A, so there's what we call option 1A, B, and C. I know it sounds fussy, but it's because they're all three essentially are variations on the same theme. So they're the ones that are addressing that immediate need. So the first one, it offers, so the pros of it, this is the one where we're moving the District 2 southern boundary line north and District 3 boundary line shifted northeast. So basically that affects the community boundary between Birchy Head and the Lodge. So this is a limited, in terms of the pros, it is a limited impact on a minimal number of districts. However, in terms of cons, it has the District 1 and 2 are barely under 10%. And so which limits any kind of capacity for electoral growth. It's not an issue until 2030 when we do this again. And it kicks the can down the road in terms of addressing the sort of overall disparity in numbers throughout the municipality. So this is in terms on the screen here, sorry, you can see then this is the 1A. So District 1 would be 9.4 essentially, District 2 would be 9.4, and District 3 would be -5. So it addresses that fix there, but you can see how close they are to the 10%. Does that meet the review board requirements? Yes, it does. But you can see that to what extent.
No, no.
So that's 1A. 1B is move it, sorry, there's so many screens, I don't know which one to look at. District 2 western boundary line shifted east.
This is one Floyd Lake, so.
Oh, okay, and the District 3 boundary line shifted northeast. Again, pros, limited impact, cons, it kicks the can down the road in terms of the overall disparity through the municipality.
More people. Yeah, there's more people.
Showing option, which.
That one, I can't see what.
Have I got the right option up?
That's one B. Or two, yeah, that's one B.
Is that 1B?
That's one B. So you're actually moving, the blue line is your council district boundary currently. The red line is where it moved. to. It's actually
the new
moving
one,
east
the red one.
in the center.
You're looking there, I'm over here.
Blue is current.
Oh.
That's what I'm just.
Oh, okay. So that's basically coming from the mall of Stanford, Lake, or Spectacle Lake, the outflow of Spectacle Lake,
Unless we get.
to Birch Street. It's a straight line from there to Birch Street, and from Birch Street down to Chester Shore Road, I think it is, and then back out to the ocean. So the goal there was basically just to move the lines enough to get us in parity, but not like. So Andre, where is that on the ground?
I don't use it.
So it would take out, would it include the other new subdivision?
Here, right? Just two of the blue line and now.
Blue is current.
That's right.
Red is current.
Where is this at? You know, can you like that?
So that's going from the mouth of, I can't remember the name of the
That'd
lake.
be like when I called, there was a cemetery there.
Yeah, so it actually comes down to the mouth of Noonan Lake.
And like that's Fort Hill.
No, not quite.
Not with
It's before that. So the trick is that when we start moving the lines.
Yeah.
It starts sitting around subdivisions, and as soon as you move the line, you go from like just having enough to now being way over.
Yeah.
So it's so tricky to move these lines. So
Yeah.
It is tricky, but that number is better because it captures more people, which I know Harvard is gonna grow, so if we don't capture at least 100.
Well, the goal is trying to get that number down as much as
Yeah,
possible.
so we need to kick the can
Hubbard's is,
or bring it back in.
historically speaking, where a highway splits, the population.
Yeah.
Skyrockets.
So, yeah, so in terms of the 1B number breakdown, in terms of percentage parity, District 1, 7.25, District 2 now 8.4, District 3 now -2.06. In terms of the number of electors, you can see that District 1 and 2 lose a number of electors, District 3 gains. So that's how that breaks out. That's the one that you like, Councillor Shepherd?
Yeah.
Any comments about that one? Okay, I know this is a lot of fussy detail, but it's just part of the process.
Well, that appears to be the one that we prefer.
Yeah, it's important, but also too, I mean, why would we not look at the smartest plan or would think longer term in terms of not kicking that can out?
Right, well, we'll get to that in one
That's what I
second.
don't get, why, yeah.
So the option 1C is basically doing a bit of both. So in terms of moving those boundaries. So this is the District 2 southern boundary line shifted north and western boundary line moved east, and the District 3 boundary line shifted northeast. Again, same pros and cons as the other two option 1 variants. But in terms of the numbers, again, very similar breakdown. So 7% for District 1, 8.6 for District 2, and again, -2 for District 3. And then you can see that in terms of number of electors. Essentially, very similar to option 1B.
It is, I look at the community of interest and also personally along the shore is where I feel there's some more community more so it would impact that less, I think.
Okay.
That's my opinion on it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
where people think they are.
yeah, and again, just to sort of underscore this process, I mean, council can put out agreed to put out 3 or all 5 of these options. And you can get the public's sort of feedback on that. And then as part of that analysis, we bring forward to council would be what kind of feedback did the community provide on whatever options we put forward. And then ultimately, council makes the final recommendation as to which of the options it's going to settle on in terms of polling district boundary revision, and we include that and write that up in the
Yeah.
report.
Just
If you offer them one thing,
too many options. Make my opinion, too many options. I mean,
You go out and tell them this is what council's proposing.
Okay,
Get a response.
Well, we'll see where we.
Okay. yeah, I mean, it's you, that's certainly, you can do that too, but go ahead.
Sorry, one thing to remember here too is in these first 3 options, even though we're sitting at like 8% or something like that. So for option C right now, you're at 1,423 voters. The max you can have right now is 1,441. Right, so you're like 17, 18
Wow.
voters. Right, so 17 or 18 people move in and start voting.
It's not
You're at,
smart plan.
right, you're at you're overall, right?
not your option one.
No, this is, well, all of them really.
All of that, it leaves little room.
Your range is 1,179 voters to 1,441. You have to sit in between
15 more
those.
years to render. Yeah.
Doesn't give enough wiggle room.
So most of them are, or a bunch of them are actually right up against that wall.
That's typical council.
So that, those are the option 1 variants. And again, as I said off the top, yes, that fixes the immediate need. That would fulfill the review board requirements. However, when we're looking at, it still doesn't address the sort of lack of parity in terms of range for all of the districts. So the other issue, and why we moved with the other 2 options was looking at how those actual polling district boundaries are created in the first place. And so what we, and well, Nick, actually, he's the expert on this, as outlined for options 2 and 3, this is a different approach in terms of that it strives to sort of align polling district boundaries with community boundaries much more consistently. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I got that right.
That's what Floyd was saying, right? Community of interest.
So
Exactly.
community of interest, exactly. So option 2. So in terms of so this is the option that looks, as I said, this moves, looks to align polling district boundaries more in keeping with community boundaries. It results in multiple changes to districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. Pros of this are improved parity of voting power for more districts and greater alignment with the community boundaries and a longer term fix. The cons would be more significant community engagement and communications, because this would have an impact on more residents throughout the municipality. In terms of how that shakes out in terms of numbers, the districts 1, 2, and 3 and 7 all gain greater sort of a shift towards sort of parity and towards that average. District 4 is essentially unchanged. It is a slight reduction.
4 more people.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are they? I probably know by name.
Chester Basin. So there's a little piece of Chester Basin community
Yeah.
that juts off into, well, you can see right there, the little green hash. Oh, Chester Grant, sorry.
Oh,
The green hash, it's literally four houses in there.
yeah.
Just the line sort of cuts it, the original line cuts it off.
Oh, okay. I know which ones those are. Yeah.
So, but that's an example of restoring that community boundary.
Well, actually, I believe in that, but.
So that's the range there for the option 2. And then what we've done for the third option is the same kind of approach. So the same pros and cons, but an even greater move towards greater parity throughout the municipality. And this is with sort of around that plus minus 5% for all districts. So here you can see then in terms of how those numbers break out, we have, the highest would be District 3, which would be plus 5.5% from the average. And
Show me where those are.
Yeah, what's the boundaries? That's the trouble. That's all.
is that the best way to look at that, or do you want to pull this one?
Oh, we can bring it up.
What's the best way to look at it?
Maybe mix the more detail now. Go ahead.
to look at it on the other screen. I don't have that.
Yeah, we are on the screen here.
Okay.
If we can pull it up.
Three.
3, yeah.
All right. So in Floyd's district, the 103 votes going into District 2 would basically make up the Lodge and Birchie Head.
Two.
That's, yeah,
Now
Now
I'm
let's
on.
vote.
so that would be. that move.
Going into District 2, they're already in District.
But,
Going from District.
oh, sorry, District 2 to District 1.
Okay.
Sorry, so that's how it is.
Okay, yes, and then what happens to District 1 on the other? Very curious.
On the other end, this is just a portion, there's one cottage or something up there, so there's no votes. District 2 would lose 278 votes on this end.
District 2,
No, sorry,
District 1.
yes,
District 1.
District 1.
sorry, District 1.
which is whose district? That doesn't seem consistent with community stuff.
It doesn't.
No, it's more extreme.
This is, yeah.
This is more extreme for sure.
I don't know what it is.
We sort of have a community of interest, I thought, established, and now we're gonna change our community
The
center.
question that begs all this is that you guys have done a good job of altering the existing boundaries, but if there were no boundaries and you guys were dividing up the pie, would you do this?
Me?
Would you do any of this? Or would you slice this up completely different with your knowledge of where the community hubs are?
Well, I can give you the basis of it. So when I followed the original lines, the way it worked, I tried to give it an parity. Then the goal was the other option we wanted to put forward was, what can we do as a change to bring it in within better parity? So then I started looking at just community boundaries and basically pulling the population of the vote counts based on community boundaries, and everything started working perfectly. Right? The only area you have to modify is the village, because you have to take, District 7 doesn't have enough, so it has to take a small portion of Chesterville or Chester up here. And then District 1 has too many, so Chester has to take. some of
I
that.
get that, I think the root of your analysis is based on the existing boundary structure.
Yes.
So what I'm asking is if there were none, who were just, there are no rules, and there was, and you knew where the population centers were, and from a community feel, you have a sense of where that is. How would you slice up the pie? Would you do it this way? I don't think you would.
Do that community boundary.
Just,
Community.
if you just wanted to carve it up into 7 roughly equal size populations.
Option 2 then.
Well,
Population.
all of these options are based on
See,
existing boundaries,
What-
which may or may not make sense anymore. I don't know. So like, cause it's like, it's starting to wonder, like, when you have District 1 starting at like East Chester and then representing people in the Lodge. Those are pretty different places. So, you know, would we do it this way if we, yeah, maybe the population works out, but if you could have a blank slate, is this what you would do, or would you do something radically different? And maybe like, just asking, like,
Yeah.
forget about the people at this table, because
Yeah.
we're all gonna be gone eventually. In time, we're all temporary.
Hopefully.
So like,
Talk about myself.
if those who come behind us look at the way this is carved up, is it gonna make sense? And 15, is it gonna hold up? Or are they gonna say, what are these guys thinking?
Well, I think,
No.
I mean, the district boundaries, the polling district boundaries as they are right now, when Nick and I were having a closer look at them, there are certainly arbitrary decisions made there. So that's in part what led to, well, is there a better way we can ground this? And so that's why we were sort of looking at the community boundaries as informing those districts. I think the challenge, that's a good question, Councillor Vino. I think the challenge is always going to be, you only have, a certain kind of population density to work with. And the whole goal is to create districts that are based on our average. So if we're maintaining 7 districts, it's still got to work within that, around that 1,310 electors per district. So that creates limitations as to what you can do. And then when you're looking at all communities of interest, natural features, and I don't know, because Nick and I had multiple conversations about, well, if we put the boundary here, then you're creating an artificial distinction between communities on houses on this side of the road and this side of the road. So you're always faced with that struggle of making sort of arbitrary lines. So even though it's not perfect, I think ultimately, or any solution I don't think would be quote unquote perfect, but at the same time, if you can provide a rationale for the bulk of what you've done, I think then you're on the right track. I don't know if that answers your question, but I hear what you're saying. That would be an interesting
I just
exercise.
feel like all of this analysis is rooted in the existing boundaries.
Right.
And if those lines didn't exist, if you were just given the map. But this is all artificial construct, I recognize this. So obviously, there's always gonna be one house that's at the end of the district, and the guy next to him, even though he's only 200 feet away, is in a different district. I understand. Do these lines, as they were drawn, whatever, 50 years ago, do they make sense anymore, or should they be radically different?
Well, I think they make sense. They've been there, for a long time. I like tradition, but they do make sense now. I would think if we need to tweak a little bit, we're gonna have to do this exercise in 8 years. Somebody will. It has to be done every 8 years. So my comment is, why do anything extreme? District 7 could have 244 new people, next year. If, say that development went ahead.
Derek is next.
I just want to see this map, so I can look at the areas.
I don't-
can't tell.
So I understand where you're coming from, because what you're basically saying is, yes, even when I did this, it was still based on, this is council area 6, this is council area, right? And you're still trying to sort of piece together by following community boundaries. The trick with it all too is that most of these districts only have 1 or 2 roads going in. So you've really only got 2 options. Either you go in this way or this way. If I wanted to modify Tina's district, I've got 1 option. I go north-south along Highway 14.
Yeah.
14. So,
Yeah, we changed everything from 10 councillors down to 7.
yeah,
Back at.
but I mean, the biggest trick with this all, and I'll just state this, is that when you start moving these lines, what I realized very quickly, once we put the voter count in here, is that there's a lot of houses with zeros. So you're looking at a thing, like there's a bunch of points, well, why don't we move the line over here and remove these points? There's no voters there, none. Like there's so many areas where
It's in the
it's
woods.
zeros. Well, even down here, there's 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
When we created these districts and they become our communities, in my opinion, anyway. And we were looking, I think I was expecting this report to come back with, I know the numbers are there with the least impact on our district.
Yeah.
Trying to keep our districts intact the way they were, it was with managing numbers, was what I was expecting here, not this overhaul of the municipality. That's what I was
I still didn't get my question.
Okay.
Sorry. I want to get that map that I asked to see. I guess it's 278 people moving.
Yep. I'm serious here. So your blue line is the old council district boundary, and then you're moving.
Okay, so where is this on the highway? Give me a.
Okay,
That doesn't give me any.
so this is Spectacle Lake here.
This is the rest of where people live.
Yes, this is the fall of Spectacle Lake. This is Old Trunk 3 right at the end.
So that would take in
Everything
right to the old school.
Yeah, I'll be in your district.
You'll be in my district.
Yeah, you'll live.
This district would lose
I think we
a
should.
small portion up here. So from the outfall of Stanford Lake
Yeah, I need to get some.
over to Haddon Hill and straight out to the ocean.
Derek, that line is close to where that line, your line used to be. The line used to be Graves Island Road for district.
Interesting, used to be, that's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, we moved it in to Graves Island Road to more. or less
Moved it in.
Years ago.
There you go.
So the whole Commons would be part of District 3,
It used to be.
and you would be not living in your district anymore.
But we just allow it, because anybody, one of us can run in any district. so.
I mean, what do we want to do before we
Yeah.
get too far along?
And again,
Do we want the large scale change or do we want the?
I defer to Flo. He said it's gonna be effective, so whatever he wants, I'm fine.
Well, I'm saying, I just thought we looked at the impact of just the least we could and make those necessary changes for the population and.
I need to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just want to add, so I think we have a couple of, council has a couple options right now. They can endorse one and send that out for consultation. Or we could say, here's 2 or 3 options. And we could get feedback on those. So if council, so I don't think we would look for you to make a decision today on this is what we're doing. Hands down, you still have to put that out for consultation, sorry.
So is it consultation? You tell people what you're doing?
well, you tell them what you're proposing, when we go
I
over
guess we can define
consultation with the
ourselves.
land use plan, we have a plan.
Yeah.
And we tell them, this is what we're thinking, people, what do you think of it?
Like we can recommend option B, 1B, for instance.
Right.
And
And we
keep
can
it
put that
simple.
out there. And then the report, the draft report, we would come back would be basically presenting to council what findings we got from that community consultation. Was there any feedback on that option we put forward? And then go from there. And that would help inform council's final recommendation that we will work up for the report to the review board. Okay.
What I want to know is what we want to do.
And so, yeah, and to be clear, I mean, we wanted to give council a number of options, so you can understand what's at stake. So you can do the tweak, yes, you can do something more substantial. But, and the reason I think we've outlined for the more substantial options is because there is a growing, we can do a quick fix now, in 8 years. That will be an even more significant thing that will have to be addressed.
I'm a little surprised at the numbers, quite frankly, particularly in my own district, because all I do is see is growth here all the time, and yet the population's dropping, and then.
Well, it would appear that it's growing, it's just the other areas are growing faster.
Yeah, the population is and is relatively the same for sure, but it's about the number of electors as they age into voting age is the determining factor. Plus, we're always dealing with averages, so there may be more significant growth in some areas than others.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing population growth of youth, then they wouldn't be
Exactly,
reflected in
exactly.
an election.
That's
Not
what
at
I'm
this
saying.
moment, yeah. Yeah, because I'm getting younger families.
That's what I'm
quite
saying, Jeremy,
frankly.
you're right.
Yeah. I know, I'm seeing
But
development
they
too.
know they're not voters yet because they're not old enough.
You're saying seasonal people, presumably, not elected, right?
No,
No.
well, both of them.
You could
yeah,
see both,
Both.
So
But there are more young families moving than there
Where are the
are
cats?
old people at the moment.
what would you?
Well, I don't know. I just want to know if we want to simple solve the issue that we got one, or if we have to decide something.
Well, I told you, but I like.
I know you want the simple, there's option 2, I think it was, for
Option 1B.
1B.
You fine with that?
Everybody else fine with that? Okay, 1B is what we want you to do.
Option 1B, all right, okay. So.
Do you want to vote on that, or you just don't know?
I'm fine with just,
Well, it doesn't have to go for budget.
no,
And-
we're only going out to consultations, that's what we're proposing.
Yeah.
And you won't get anybody.
So, so
I
community
usually trust
consultation,
people, if they say that it's okay to go forward, then I think it's okay.
No, change their mind.
Yeah, well, that happens all the time.
so the review board, I'll just go over the community, because the other piece is so great, we settled on an option, we can put that forward. And then what I want to run through with you all now is how we're proposing to address community consultation. Again, as I've mentioned, the review board stresses the importance of consultation. And public, as the review board says, public consultation is an inherent component of the study to be conducted by council, and there's more on that. What we're proposing then is, it's a couple of pieces to this. Voices and Choices project page. On that, that would be a landing point for all information related to the boundary review. So that would include the online survey questions, the boundary map that we'll put forward, a question and answer option, project timeline, and a staff contact for direct questions. So we could promote that information. As I mentioned, the survey, the resident survey would be posted on the Voices and Choices page, but we could also include that as an insert in the municipal newsletter in print. And the whole point, as I mentioned earlier, of the survey questions will be to gather representative data to help validate the recommendations put forward in the application and studied to the review board. In the request for directions, we included those draft survey questions. So Jen and I will review those more carefully once council has decided on its direction and then polish that up. But those are the draft questions included. At this point, do any of you have any feedback on the proposed direction around community consultation about those components outlined? Anybody?
Can we talk about the questionnaire?
That's part of it, yeah.
I have.
Okay.
Question 6 about the mayors and wardens is a terribly written question, in my view. Because what person would read that question and say, yes, I want a mayor?
What
When it's
happened
written.
what happened last time, right? He didn't.
It's, it says that basically, to paraphrase, that a mayor and warden system basically does the same job, but if you go with a mayor, you have to pay for an extra elected official, which is actually not accurate. When Modal got a mayor, they actually deleted 2 councillor positions and took on it. So of course, that's not a correct statement.
Well, those are separate questions, because if you're going to change the number of councils, that's one. But if you could, but a mayoral candidate would be separate from the polling district.
But then you don't make a comment because it doesn't, the 2 things are not linked, as you just said.
Right.
So that should not be in the question. You don't say that this is the consequence. You get an elected official because it doesn't have to be that.
Well, okay.
Yes.
Just ask them if they want a mayor or a warden, leave it at that.
Yeah, they're different.
They won't-
In fact, how many mayors are there in rural, in our rural municipalities in Nova Scotia? Do you know?
I don't.
Well, we say that there are most in this question, but actually 7 of the 20 are led by mayors. So it's hardly an overwhelming majority. So I feel like this question leads a person to basically say, no, we'll stick with the warden. It definitely should not do that.
Okay. Yeah,
It's a very biased question.
It's a draft question, so that's why we're bringing it forward for your
Just
input.
make it a general question.
Yeah, we can.
Rest of it out.
And you'll note, you could even, if you wanted to bias it the other way, you could say, in the last 10 years, 6 municipalities have changed to mayors.
Yeah.
And here are the reasons why.
Yeah.
Would you like a mayor?
Yeah.
But you didn't do that. So this question leads a person to say, I want the warden system.
Just leave it as a general basic question.
Yeah.
And let them decide.
No, that's a good critique. Yeah, we can make that change.
Anything else, Andre?
No, I think
Okay. Does anybody else have any issues with questions in the process? We want to go ahead with it then? Well, we have to do something, so we don't have a choice.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead with it. Go get the rest done.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, people.
Just so you know then, in the next steps, in early November, then we'll bring, we're following the conclusion of the community consultation plan. We'll bring what findings and analysis we have from that. And then that will inform
Our
what
next
council's final
big
recommendation is, and then we'll go from there. Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay. 8.1, I usually have a break right now, but I know we don't have time. Well, look at you.
If you guarantee 5 minutes.
Will we guarantee 5 minutes, can we?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go for it.
Hit the hammer.
5 minutes.